What's up, y'all? Thank you for joining us. Thank you to SoCal Filipinos. We're here. I'm your host, Maria de la Ghetto. Today is a very special interview. We are bringing on a special guest. This is Casey Hernandez. We are actually bringing some awareness to you today, and just really trying to help spread the word, trying to find her a bone marrow donor. So I'm just going to get it started. I'm going to bring out Casey Hernandez so we can actually talk, get to know her, have her really just talk about everything surrounding leukemia. Because I really have no idea. I mean, I've in just the 5 minutes we've had a conversation, I've already learned so much. So thank you for joining us, Casey. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm on the mend. I had a little bit of a cold, so sorry if I sound a little nasally, a little friend rusher. But I'm finally getting better. So yeah, but how are you doing? Like, talk to me. I want to get to know you a little bit. I want our audience members to have a little backstory on Casey, just Casey. Like, what's your favorite food? What are your hobbies? Like, tell me a little about yourself.
Okay. So my name is Casey Hernandez, and I am 22 years old. I am a new grad nurse, so I just started my career as a NICU nurse.
Oh,
Yeah, this past September, which I really loved before getting diagnosed. A little bit about me. Let's see, my favorite food is cookies and cream ice cream. Anything
good
cookies
stuff.
and cream flavored. Um, and then some of my favorite things are, let's see, my my dogs, my friends and family, my
Mhm.
boyfriend Riley. Um, I love baking. I love going to the beach. I love going on Target runs.
Ooh,
Um,
yes, who doesn't?
and I love Taylor Swift, and I'm a really big Wicked fanatic. So
Oh,
musical, I've seen it like 7 or 8 times, and I see it
wow.
when it goes back to LA. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. Um,
Nice. Okay, so quick this or that. Lumpia or pancit?
Lumpia.
Yes. We're here. That's definitely my favorite. That's the favorite childhood Filipino food for sure.
Mhm.
Dang that. Okay, so I just have to say, you're already done with nursing school
Mhm.
and you're only 22.
Yes.
That is amazing. So you just jumped right in right out of high school then.
Yeah, so I decided to apply straight to nursing school, like, right out of high school, and I was really fortunate to get into UCI's program, which is a direct admit program. So I was admitted as a nursing major as a freshman, and then just completed their 4-year track and graduated in June.
That is, oh, so you just graduated.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That is so amazing. And then you work in the NICU with the little babies.
Yeah.
That is so cool. What made you want to become a nurse? I mean, I know there's plenty of Filipino nurses, and I'm sure everyone would say, "Well, of course, you're Filipino. That's what we do." But I'm definitely not a nurse. So, like, was there something specific, or did you just like what made you realize that you wanted to be a nurse?
You know, to this day, that still remains, like, the hardest question for me to answer. My both my parents were nurses, and so it wasn't any influence from them. It was just something that I just knew. I knew I loved science. I knew I wanted to help people, and I felt like nursing was the perfect medium between that. And so I went to a high school that was really career oriented, and so right from the get go, as a freshman, they were having us take, quizzes to see what kind of careers we would be comfortable in, and interviewing potential careers. And I actually interviewed one of my ninongs who's a pediatric nurse, and that kind of sealed the deal for me and like made me decide like that's what I wanted to pursue. And so it's been my goal since I was a freshman in high school, and I was very fortunate to achieve that this past summer.
Wow. I am always so amazed at the kind of drive people like you have that know what they want to do so early on and they're just like, this is what I want to do and I'm doing it. I have a cousin
Mhm.
who's the same way. She's 26 and she finished dental school at like 24, 25. Already has her own practice. Shout out to my cousin. She does all my dental work and it's a lot, let me tell you.
Mhm.
So that is just so amazing. And thank you to all our titas and titos who are out there on the front lines as nurses because I let me tell you, I've been in surgery and there's nothing more comforting than hearing them speak Tagalog around me. I'm like, all right, I'm in good hands.
Yeah.
So that is amazing. Okay, so I want to talk about what we're doing here today, why we're here. So you were recently diagnosed with leukemia?
Yes.
And how recent was this?
I was diagnosed at the beginning of October.
Okay. Wow. So just okay. So I don't know what you're comfortable with talking about and I'll follow you at your speed, whatever. So whatever you're comfortable with talking about, I would just love a little bit of like a background like information, like what made you like how did you even like realize or what made you guys like think, "Oh, I need to get tested."
Mhm. Yeah, so, um, like I said, I had just started working as a nurse, in September, um, and throughout September, I started noticing the symptoms of my leukemia. It first started with bleeding gums, and so I didn't think too much of it until it started hurting, so I went to the dentist and, he did an exam, he was like, "Everything looks fine, I think it might just be that your retainer is no longer fit, so go ahead and see an orthodontist, maybe he can help you." And so, on October 1st, I had gone to the orthodontist, and he looked at my gums, and he was like, "I'm gonna be honest with you, I've never seen retainers do this to gums, like, you should probably get your blood work done." Um, and so immediately after that, I went straight to urgent care where they did blood tests, and it came back abnormal. So my platelet count was 18. Normal platelet count is between 150 and 450. Um,
Whoa.
and my WBCs, my white blood cells, were 75. And a normal white blood cell count is like 4 to 11. And so um, that was the first indication that obviously something was really wrong. And so the doctor recommended I go straight to the emergency department, where he said that they'd likely admit me just because when your platelet count is that low, you're at extreme risk for bleeding. So if I had cut myself, if I had fallen, then I could have potentially bled internally, or like wouldn't be able to stop bleeding. Um, and so I did. And, throughout September, I did experience other symptoms as well. I had been getting really tired. I was getting itchy. I was experiencing a lot of fatigue, and I had assumed that it was just me starting work. I was
Mhm.
working 12-hour shifts on top of going to new grad classes, so I thought I was tired from that. And I thought the itching might have been just, me wearing latex gloves all day. But yeah, I didn't really think about that too much. I was also experiencing joint pain, but again, like I just attributed all of that to work. But then closer to me going to the orthodontist, I started noticing petechia throughout my body. So it's little red dots that were forming just all over my body. And that's kind of a sign of a bleeding problem.
Oh.
And so when I started noticing the petechia, I like I knew something was wrong. I had learned about it in nursing school, and
Mhm.
I had planned to get my blood drawn, after I had gone to the orthodontist. So I knew
Right.
something was wrong, and I, like, knew that I needed to get blood work done, but I was gonna wait until I was free, essentially.
Right.
Um, but going to orthodontist kind of prompted that to get done sooner rather than later. But yeah, so those were my main symptoms. It's weird because I didn't think that I knew they were symptoms associated with leukemia, but I didn't think that, like, as a newly graduated nurse, I could diagnose myself with something that severe. And so I didn't want to believe that it was true.
Right.
But that's what ended up happening. And so when I was diagnosed, it didn't really come to as much of a shock. Like, it was something that I assumed could be possible, but I
Mm-hmm.
was hoping that it could be something else. Like, when they were doing tests, they ran a lot of autoimmune disorder tests, and so I was hoping that it was something like that and not cancer. But
Right.
they were able to determine that it was cancer, and after completing a bone marrow biopsy, they confirmed that it was cancer, and it was acute myeloid leukemia um, that I was diagnosed with. And so, um, yeah, so they diagnosed me, and a couple days later, I started chemo.
Well, that is, I mean, it sounds like you being a nurse really was like lucky. I mean, in a way, like that. How many people are, have that like knowledge? Because
Mm.
who would have know? Who knows? And also, I mean, that says a lot about like how we take care of ourselves, because, you were just like, oh, it's probably just from working so much. And this like grind culture that we have, it just kind of like forces us to just keep on going. And we're like, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. So I really think like, yeah, at least you paid attention to your body. You
Mm.
were still, while and I get it. You like, that's just, you're a hard worker. Like, clearly, like you are on it. But that is, I mean, and who knows like how long it would have taken for someone else to realize like something's not right, you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
of all things, bleeding gums. I mean, I'd have been like, dang, I just got really bad dental hygiene.
Mhm.
So that is just wild. And like you said, like you don't really think, like, I mean, most of us are just like, what, like, you're so young, like, and even me, I'm 38. I'm close. I'm getting up there, and even me, I'm just like, I still feel like, oh, I'm still young, I'm fine, but like I have my own health issues. But really, like, taking care of ourselves is just, we have to remember. So, like, it sounds so corny, but like self care, and like, I'm just so. Are you? Is there like, are you at a level like where you're still like, is it an early stage? Like, it seems like they caught it. Like, you seem like really like still lively. You like, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the thing about AML, the type of cancer that I have, it's known to be very aggressive
Mm-hmm.
and known to be resistant to chemotherapy. And
Oh.
so, like I said, after I was diagnosed, I was immediately started on induction chemo. And so it was 7 days of continuous infusion through a PICC line that they inserted. So basically, like a hardcore IV that goes straight to my heart. Um, so I was getting chemo through that for 7 days, in addition to like an IV push dose. So two chemo drugs for 7 days. And then when they did more test or more or a more in-depth look at my bone marrow biopsy results, they determined that the leukemic cells had two mutations that were a little more tricky to treat. So the first mutation, luckily, had a treatment. It was an oral pill that I took for 14 days after the infusion. So I took it twice a day, every day for 14 days. Um, but the other mutation, there currently is no treatment for. So when they determined that I had that mutation, that was when they decided that I needed the bone marrow transplant because um, it's known to be resistant to chemo, and so the best case scenario would be for me to get a transplant so that the cancer doesn't keep coming back because of that mutation.
Right.
And so I spent 39 days in the hospital for my first hospital stay, just because when they did the chemo, they essentially wiped out all of my blood cells. So everything went down to 0. So I essentially had no immune system.
Whoa.
And I was getting blood transfusions and platelet transfusions like almost every other day, just to try to get my counts back up. And so I stayed in the hospital until my immune system was a little stronger. And once it got once it kind of got recovered, they let me go home. And so I've been home since November 8th.
Oh, wow.
But we just found out that my blood tests are starting to become abnormal again. So November 18th, my white blood cell count was 3.3, which is considered normal. So it's, or not normal, but it's considered close to normal. It was a good number that we had expected. But as of a couple days ago, it rose to 55.
Dang.
So it shows that, just in those 2 weeks, the cancer is really aggressive and is coming back really fast. So since I've been discharged, we talked to a bone marrow transplant specialist, and he actually informed us that City of Hope has a current clinical trial that can potentially treat the mutation that currently doesn't have a treatment. And so we've been doing pre-screening. We're waiting for the results of that to see if I'm eligible to participate in the trial. If I am, I can start as soon as next week, and hopefully that will get me into remission so that I am ready for a transplant. In order to receive the transplant, I have to be in remission, and unfortunately, I haven't achieved that yet. So we're hoping that this clinical trial works so that I can get the transplant as soon as possible.
Oh, I didn't know that you had to be in remission to get the transplant. So, wow. So let's talk a little bit about the donor match, because we were talking about this briefly earlier before we came on. Tell us more about the, like, finding the match, number one, because you said, well, I'll let you talk about it because it's kind of a lot.
Yeah. So they call it finding the match like finding a needle in a haystack. It's more than just finding someone with the same blood type as you. I mean, your donor doesn't even have to be your blood type. In most cases, they're not your blood type, and sometimes you can adopt the blood type of your donor. So your blood type can change based on what your donor's blood type is, which is really interesting.
Did not know. Yeah, that isn't. I never knew that.
Yeah, and so they find your donor based on your HLA match. So it's essentially genetic markers that determine which donor would be your best match. And so ideally, you want a donor who has very similar HLA markers to you to increase your chances of accepting the donor and going into recovery. And so we've been working with Be The Match, which is a nonprofit organization that tries to find donors for patients in need of a transplant. And they've been really great. They've helped us, put on drives and really get my story out there. So we're really appreciative of them for that. But yeah, so essentially the process for finding the donor is, one, to try to get people to sign up. The tricky part about my situation is the fact that I am half Mexican, half Filipino. So because I'm a mixed of mixed race, there's a little more difficulty in finding me a match. Unfortunately, the current Be The Match Registry is disproportionately made up of minorities. So of the entire match, so of the thousands of people that are on the registry right now, 80% of them are Caucasian and 20% are all the other minorities. And so
Wow.
it's really hard for like any minority to find a donor, which is why we're really encouraging everybody of any background to sign up. And being mixed, it makes it a little more difficult to find that match because um, I'm two minorities in one. And so
Right.
um, ideally, we are looking for somebody who is Filipino, Mexican, or both. And hopefully somebody who has the same HLA or similar HLA markers as me, um, which is scary. But honestly, throughout this whole process, I've felt a lot of hope, like talking to different people, finding out that they are like mixed like me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it does give me hope every time someone tells me that because, I being told that it's going to be tricky to find a donor is scary, but then to like hear people say like I'm a mix too and I'm going to sign up is really inspiring.
Absolutely. That I mean, I'm definitely gonna sign up.
Thank you.
Um that because I mean, really being mixed is it's not as it's common, but it's really like if you think about it, it's probably not as common as we think. And then especially like specific mixes, like ethnicities, like Filipino and Mexican. I don't meet a lot of Filipino and Mexicans as many as there are here in LA. I'm in LA. I don't know exactly where you're at, but just in even in Southern California, I don't know that many or have met that many Filipino Mexicans. So I can only imagine. So yeah, I mean I had no idea about that. Like because I'm sure there are other things that people need. They could need something, with some sort of donor for something, and this kind of information isn't just like out there readily available, like easily. It's not something you would, and it's not something you would casually look up. So I'm so glad that we're able to kind of just help spread the word about this. Like I have learned so much just from talking to you, and I'm just like, yeah, I want to tell everyone, like, hey, all my mixed friends, get
Mhm.
on there, put your info. You never know who you can
Yeah,
help.
absolutely.
So who's Filipino and who's Mexican?
So my mom is Filipino, my dad is Mexican.
Oh, now I have a question. Does that matter? Or is it just like, would it be a better match if they were the same, like Mexican dad, Filipino mom, or does it matter?
I don't think that it matters.
Mhm.
I we had done HLA testing within our family, and so unfortunately, my sister, who um, is also half Filipino, half Mexican, was not a match at all. Um,
Wow, really?
yeah, and um, unfortunately, 70% of people who need a transplant don't have matches who are siblings or matches in their family, which is why they turn to Be The Match. Um, And so we had also tested my parents. And so my mom was a half match to me, and my dad was a little more than a half match, I think like 60 something percent. Um, but yeah, so it was obviously when we had first heard about it, we were really hopeful that my sister would be a match. Unfortunately, she wasn't. And so that's why we started this whole campaign to try to find a match and get people to sign up. I saw a question below and it asked like how testing works. And so essentially, um, you register on the Be The Match website. You can go to the website yourself, or you can text TEAMKC to 61474. Um, and Be The Match will send you an oral swab kit to be completed. So it's literally just you swab your mouth and send it back to Be The Match. It's completely free, and Be The Match then takes your oral swab kit and tries to figure out your HLA match from your oral swab kit. So it's super easy, super painless. And if you are a match, you would get contacted by Be The Match for further testing. And so based on my research, I believe 8% of people who are contacted end up going through with the whole process. So it's still a lot to fully cover. Ironically, but way before I was born, my parents had both signed up for Be The Match. So they knew about this organization way before any of this happened. There was a firefighter at their church at the time, and he needed a transplant, so they signed up hoping to be a match for him. And then in 2008, my mom was called in to potentially, because she was called in because she could have potentially been a match for a person in need of a transplant. But they had found somebody who had more similar HLA markers and ended up going with them, but still, like, she could have possibly donated years later.
Yeah.
And so essentially, you just have to be between 18 and 40 years old to register. They do prefer the younger population just because it decreases the risk of, adverse complications. But yeah, and then something that I really like to touch on whenever I talk about it is, like, I feel like there's this really big stigma with bone marrow transplants. For one, people kind of get confused between a bone marrow and stem cell transplant. They're essentially the same thing.
Okay.
But essentially, there's this, like, negative stigma that it's a super painful procedure where they drill into your bones and like, you're, like, incapacitated, and it's not true at all. I don't know if you watched The 100 on the CW when it was out, but
No, I heard it was a good show.
There was this whole season where they were, like, drilling into bone marrow and, like, making it the super painful procedure, and that's just not it at all. And so I really tried to educate people that it's actually very similar to so there's two procedures. 85% of the time, the procedure is very similar to that of a platelet transfusion. So it's basically a platelet or blood transfusion. So they just take blood from your body through an IV, put it through a machine, collect the stem cells, and then return your blood to you. So it's just like giving blood. And it only takes a couple hours of your day, and you go home the same day. And so, a couple hours of your time gives a lifetime for somebody who needs your stem cells, which I think is really awesome and really cool that, like, whenever I watch videos of people talking about their experience, they literally just, watched a movie and they were done, or, like, did some homework and then they were done, and then they saved a life, which is really cool. Now, the other 15% of donations happen through a surgical procedure where they do extract bone marrow from the pelvic bone, but you are under sedation, and it's also an outpatient procedure. So you're out of the hospital the same day, out and about walking. It's not supposed to be painful. I think modern technology has really helped improve the overall experience for donors, which is really great. And so, it's made donating really easy and really simple, and doesn't take too much of your time. And I think another great thing is the fact that Be The Match will cover all the expenses. So they cover transportation, they cover hotel costs, they cover food while you're preparing for the transplant, for you and one companion. So you it's essentially, this whole thing is free, and you're able to go through this whole experience and save a life, which I think is really cool.
Absolutely. I mean, what's a day or two for someone versus saving a whole life, you know?
Yeah.
Like I just so yeah. Um so for your procedure it would be the pelvic um
So
uh
it actually is determined by the doctor. My procedure
oh
could be either one. So like I said,
okay.
85% of the time, it's just the blood draw.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So that's the
Okay.
more common procedure.
Right.
Um, but it really just depends on what your doctor thinks is the best option.
Mhm.
I'm pretty tiny, so from what I understand, I don't need that much.
Oh girl,
Um,
well, I'm plenty big, so if I can help you out, I hope I can.
yeah. So I would assume like the blood draw would be sufficient, but again, it's totally up to
Mhm.
what the doctor thinks is best. But I think it's just really important to emphasize that both procedures are outpatient,
Yeah.
and you can walk out of the hospital the same day um, with mild or barely any discomfort.
Yeah. That is actually I'm really glad you did bring that up because I was talking to a friend of mine who had the same, like what you said. They thought that like, don't you get a spinal tap or something? I was like, I don't know, but I was prepared to get a spinal tap for you. Don't worry. I was like, look, man, if a little poke, it'll help out. I mean, honestly. So I'm really glad that you did bring that up because that is nothing compared to what people assume, especially because Hollywood does all these crazy scenarios where you're like, oh no, never mind, like come
Mhm.
on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I get my blood drawn every other month. You know what I'm saying? Like we're good. It's really, yeah. I mean, it's really nothing in comparison to what you can do with that.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Um. Oh, I did want to ask you. You had just started an Instagram specifically for this, so that you could educate people. Share that with us. Tell us what you post, what your handle is.
Yeah, so my handle is the number 4, and then Casey. So match for Casey. And essentially, I just started it, but I have this whole, my whole feed planned out so that I'm providing, education on transplant basics, the myths and the facts and what to expect for both the donor and the recipient. And I also post, upcoming drives. So, um, in order to register, like you could text the TEAMKC to 61474 and they'll mail you the kits. But we also have set up drives throughout Southern California to allow people the opportunity to register in person. So we just had one at College of the Canyons in Valencia a couple days ago, and it was great. We had over 100 people sign up, which was really
Oh
awesome. We also
wow!
had one at UCLA and University of Laverne. And then coming up, we will have one this Tuesday at CSUN. So if you're in
Oh
the Northridge
nice.
area, it'll be at CSUN. I'll be posting details about it on my Instagram. And then in about a week, so I think next Sunday, we'll be having it at a church in San Dimas. So um, again, if you're in the area and you want to register, those opportunities will be available, and I'll be posting more details about it on that Instagram. Um, but yeah, it's just we just really want to, spread the word, get as many people to sign up as possible.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
um, it's so important that we increase the amount of um, ethnic groups
Absolutely.
in the registry. Just like off the top of my head, um, there's a little boy in Alaska who's 6 years old, and he has the same type of cancer as me, and he needs a transplant. And there's a 14-year-old girl in London or the UK who also needs a transplant who has AML. And so Be The Match does work internationally, which is really cool. But it's just, keeping that in mind that these can't, like, you could be saving the life of one of thousands of cancer patients, like not only in the United States, but around the world.
Yeah.
Cancer doesn't discriminate. It can
Sure
affect
does not.
any gender, any ethnic background. And
Hmm.
so ensuring that Be The Match has the registry ready for people when they need it is really important.
Yeah. Well, I think we pretty much covered everything. I mean, is there anything else that you want to share? Any final notes?
Um, yeah, I mean, I'm really grateful for this opportunity to talk to you and to like educate people and to, spread the word about Be The Match and the whole transplant process. Um, like I said, before I was diagnosed, I didn't know about any of this. And um, I it's just really important that we get the word out. I don't like I guess a lot of people know Jason Momoa. He's an actor.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Oh, I love Jason Momoa.
yeah, he's actually a really big advocate of Be The Match, and he always says that he aged out of the age requirement before he even knew about Be The Match, and so his biggest regret is not signing up when he could, and so that's why
Right.
he dedicates so much of his time to advocating um, for the registry and like going to events. He was just at an event in Hawaii for
Right.
a boy who needed a transplant. Um, and so I think that's just something to keep in mind too. Like there aren't many times in our lives where we're given the opportunity to save a life, but this one is so simple and so easy, and
Yeah.
it allows you to give a lifetime to somebody else. Like there's still so much that I want to do in my life, and so I'm just asking people to register and to sign up and
Absolutely. And
give me a chance.
you deserve it, and you will. You will. Honestly, you will. But I'm I'm gonna do whatever I can. I'm glad I found out before I hit the 40-year mark because I had no idea. So I can only imagine how many other people there are that don't know about this. So that this is I'm really grateful that I was able to talk to you about this and learn about this. So we are going to do everything we can, and I'm so thankful for you talking to us, to all of us, because I mean, I'm sure it's just not easy, a day-to-day thing. It's just not easy, and you have this, you mustered the strength to get on here, and that is a big deal. That really is. So thank you so much. And to anyone, like she said, get on there. You can text. It's so easy. You just a little swab. How many COVID tests have you all taken? You know what I'm saying? You can do a little swab, and and yeah, anything else you can reach her at Match for Casey. At You can text right there on the screen 61474 to sign up and get your kit to see if you're a match. And even if you're not a match for Casey, I mean, you might be a match for someone else. You never know. But
Exactly.
yeah, thank you again. I think that about wraps it up. um thank you to SoCal Filipinos for having us, for hosting this, and letting us spread the word like this, educating people. And I will do my best to try and come out and support. I'll definitely follow you on Insta, and then I would love to come out and support when I can, if I can. And yeah, and I'll stay keep us posted on your updates. I'm hoping, praying, sending you all the loving and healing vibes and prayers, everything, whatever will work. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
Like, I will do it all. So again, thank you, and thank you to everyone that came on here and really showed love, like all the love and support. That really means a lot. And yeah, I think that's it, y'all. I think we're gonna call it a night. Get some rest. Drink some tea. Put some calamansi in there. You know, that's good.
Thank you so much for having me. I
Of
really
course.
appreciate it.
Yes, definitely. All right, y'all. Well, take care and salamat to everyone. And that is it. Good night.